The sun hung low in the sky, casting an amber glow over the rugged terrain of the planet Zorath. The air was thick with the scent of iron and ozone, a reminder of the countless battles that had been fought on this unforgiving world. In the center of a vast, crater-pocked arena stood a figure that commanded attention. A towering alien warrior, her skin a deep shade of cobalt, her eyes glowing like molten gold. She was clad in armor that seemed to be forged from the very stars themselves, shimmering with an otherworldly light. Her name was Kaelith, and she was known across the galaxy as the Badaas, the Unyielding. Kaelith was not just a warrior. She was a legend. Her exploits were sung in the halls of 100 worlds. Her name whispered in awe by those who dared to dream of greatness. She had never been defeated in combat, and her reputation was such that few even dared to challenge her. But today was different. Today she had issued a challenge of her own, a challenge that had drawn a curious crowd from across the galaxy. Standing opposite her was a human, a species that was still relatively new to the interstellar stage. His name was Jarek, and he was a mercenary, a drifter who had spent most of his life on the fringes of civilized space. He was tall and lean, with a face that bore the scars of a dozen battles. His eyes were a steely gray, and they held a quiet determination as he faced the alien warrior. He had heard of Kaelith, of course, who hadn't? But he had never imagined that he would find himself standing in her shadow, let alone facing her in combat. The challenge had been simple yet audacious. Kaelith had declared that she would take a mate, but only if that mate could defeat her in single combat. It was a challenge that had drawn warriors from across the galaxy, each hoping to be the one to claim the honor of being her equal. But one by one, they had fallen, their pride and their bodies broken by the sheer force of her will. Jarek had watched from the sidelines, his curiosity piqued. He had no illusions about his chances. He was a skilled fighter, but Kaelith was in a league of her own. And yet, something about her challenge had struck a chord within him. It wasn't just the prospect of winning her hand. It was the idea of testing himself against the very best. And so, against his better judgment, he had stepped forward. The crowd murmured as Jarek approached, their voices a low hum of anticipation. They had seen this story play out before, and they knew how it usually ended. But there was something different about this human, something in the way he carried himself that suggested he might just have a chance. Kaelith regarded him with a cool, appraising gaze, her golden eyes narrowing slightly as she took in his appearance. She had faced countless challengers, but this one intrigued her. There was a quiet confidence about him, a sense of purpose that set him apart from the others. "You are brave to step forward, human," she said, her voice a low, resonant purr that sent a shiver down Jarek's spine. "But bravery alone will not save you. Do you truly believe you can defeat me?" Jarek met her gaze without flinching. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'm willing to find out." Kaelith's lips curved into a faint smile. "Very well. Let us begin." The arena fell silent as the two combatants circled each other, their movements slow and deliberate. Kaelith moved with a grace that belied her size, her every step a testament to her skill and experience. Jarek, by contrast, was more cautious, his eyes never leaving her as he searched for an opening. He knew that he couldn't match her strength or speed, but he hoped that his agility and cunning might give him an edge. The first blow came without warning, a lightning-fast strike from Kaelith that Jarek barely managed to dodge. He felt the rush of air as her fist passed within inches of his face, and he knew that if it had connected, the fight would have been over before it had even begun. He countered with a quick jab, but she blocked it effortlessly, her movements fluid and precise. The crowd roared as the two warriors clashed, their blows ringing out like thunder. Jarek quickly realized that he was outmatched. Kaelith was faster, stronger, and more skilled than any opponent he had ever faced. But he refused to give up. He ducked and weaved, using his smaller size to his advantage as he tried to stay one step ahead of her. He landed a few glancing blows, but they seemed to have little effect on her. She, on the other hand, was relentless, her attacks coming in a relentless barrage that left him with little room to breathe. But as the fight wore on, Jarek began to notice something. Kaelith was holding back. It was subtle, but he could see it in the way she moved, the way she hesitated just a fraction of a second before striking. She was testing him, probing his limits to see how far he could go. And that gave him an idea. Summoning every ounce of strength and determination he had, Jarek launched a desperate counterattack. He feinted to the left, then spun to the right, catching Kaelith off guard. His fist connected with her midsection, and for the first time he saw a flicker of surprise in her eyes. She staggered back, but only for a moment. Then she was on him again, her attacks more ferocious than ever. But Jarek had found his rhythm. He was no longer fighting to win. He was fighting to prove himself. He dodged and parried, his movements becoming more fluid as he adapted to her style. He landed another blow, then another, each one harder than the last. Kaelith's expression changed, her golden eyes narrowing as she realized that he was not going to give up. She increased the intensity of her attacks, but Jarek held his ground, his determination unwavering. The crowd was on its feet now, their cheers deafening as they watched the two warriors battle it out. It was a fight unlike any they had ever seen, a clash of wills that transcended mere physical combat. And then, finally, it happened. Jarek saw his opening. Kaelith overextended on a strike, leaving herself vulnerable for just a moment. It was all he needed. He stepped in close, his fist driving into her chest with all the force he could muster. Kaelith stumbled back, her eyes wide with shock. For a moment it seemed as though she might fall. But then she straightened, her gaze locking onto Jarek's. There was a long, tense silence as the two warriors stared at each other, the crowd holding its breath. And then, to everyone's astonishment, Kaelith smiled. It was a genuine smile, one that lit up her face and made her seem almost human. "You have done what no other has," she said, her voice filled with a quiet respect. "You have proven yourself worthy." Jarek blinked, unsure of what to say. "Does that mean?" Kaelith stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "It means," she said, her voice low and intimate, "that you have won more than just a fight. You have won my heart." The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices echoing across the arena. Jarek stood there, stunned, as Kaelith reached out and took his hand. "Come," she said. "There is much to discuss." As they walked away from the arena, Jarek couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief. He had come here expecting nothing more than a chance to test himself against the best. But instead, he had found something far greater, a connection that transcended species, a bond forged in the heat of battle. And as he looked at Kaelith, he knew that his life would never be the same. In the days that followed, Jarek and Kaelith spent much of their time together, learning about each other's worlds and cultures. They trained together, their sparring sessions becoming a dance of mutual respect and admiration. And as they grew closer, Jarek began to understand what it truly meant to be a warrior. It wasn't just about strength or skill. It was about honor, about fighting for something greater than oneself. Kaelith, for her part, found herself drawn to Jarek in ways she had never expected. She had always believed that she would never find an equal, someone who could match her in both body and spirit. But in Jarek she had found that and more. He was not just a warrior. He was a man of integrity, someone who fought not for glory, but for what he believed in. And that, more than anything, was what made him worthy of her. Their union was celebrated across the galaxy, a symbol of hope and unity in a universe that was often divided. And as they stood together, hand in hand, Jarek and Kaelith knew that they had found something rare and precious, a love that had been forged in the fires of battle, and that would endure for all time. But their story did not end there. Together, they embarked on a new journey, one that would take them to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. They fought side by side, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. And though they faced many challenges, they knew that as long as they had each other, they could overcome anything. For Jarek and Kaelith, the fight had been just the beginning. It was the start of a new chapter, one that would be written in the stars. And as they looked to the future, they knew that their story was far from over. It was a story of love, of courage, and of the unbreakable bond between two warriors who had found in each other the one thing they had been searching for all along, a true equal.